Good morning, guys. Ryan from Husky Moving here, Arlington, Massachusetts. We are a full service moving company. We do residential, we do commercial, we do assembly, handyman, odd jobs, artwork mounting, TV mounting, disposal, all sorts of random stuff. I want to talk to you guys today about stealing other people's customers. So, I'm going to preface this by saying I would never advise you to do anything like shady, immoral, anything that's going to make you feel guilty about yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about going on a job that you've been hired with someone else and trying to take their customer from them. If someone brought you into a situation and you were the third party to that situation, you should always honor yourself as the third party to that situation, meaning it's not your customer, it's not your client. You were in the background, you were there to help out the person who brought you in. That customer is always that person's customer, and that will never change. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a situation where you get brought in and you have the ability to, a customer was going to go in a different direction, and then for whatever reason you got brought into the situation, and now it's time for you to steal that customer from someone else who didn't do their job properly. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to detail a situation that happened last week. Let me get rid of this thing. Probably doesn't look too great on camera. um I got a call last week. I don't know, it was like Wednesday night, from a guy. He works for Improv Asylum in Boston, which, if you are from Boston, you know it's one of the comedy groups in town. They have a relatively big name. I didn't, never met this guy before. Calls me out of the blue and it was like, yeah, we're supposed to be doing a move tomorrow. The company just canceled on me. All right, that's our starting point. This guy's in a bind. He needs help. He thought something was going to happen last minute. What he thought was going to happen is now not happening. Now he needs someone to come in and fix that problem. Okay, so that's the starting point. That's where I'm getting called in. It's not a huge job. He needs, I think it's roughly 60 book boxes moved from an office space in the North End into their new office space in Faneuil Hall. Now, the only thing you need to know about this is, if you're not from Boston, the things you need to take away from that story are, or you need to learn about that story, are the North End is brutal to park in. Probably the worst parking in the entire city, as far as I'm concerned. Really hard to work in the North End. Tiny streets. It's an old neighborhood, not designed for commerce, and it's just really hard to park. It's infinitely worse when there's been snow on the ground, because all it does is push the available space further and further in and in, and it's really hard to get trucks in there. That's important to the story. The next part of the story is Faneuil Hall is not challenging to park in per se, although there's not a lot of parking. What's challenging about Faneuil Hall is it's this big giant marketplace that you can't drive trucks into. You need to park on the outskirts and then theoretically bring the stuff in. And this is just important to the story because it's going to add challenge to what I need to do, obviously. You can't just pull up to the front door, theoretically. So we're talking back and forth. I don't ask too many questions about the other company because, if I'm being honest with you, I don't really care. All I'm trying to do in that moment is provide empathy to him, because now he's been put in a situation like he thought he had this handled. Now it's not handled. Now he's like scrambling to get it handled, blah, blah, blah. It's also a third floor walk up on the load up. And he told me there was a elevator on the unload, but come to find out that didn't actually happen. There wasn't a working elevator. There was an elevator, apparently. It wasn't working. I never verified because at that point I didn't really care. I just wanted to get the job done. Um, so all these things are important. So I'm talking on the phone, blah blah blah. He just so happened that he needed it done in a time frame when I was available. So I was like, listen, here's what I charge. He kind of like asked a couple questions about the charging. He thought, I could tell he thought it was probably higher than he wanted to pay, blah blah blah. But the reality was, whether he liked it or not, he had a guy on the other end of the phone that's willing to come in and do it for him. So now he has to make a decision. Does he want to make 15 more phone calls, or does he want to, get this written off his list, theoretically? So now the point of the video, this is where the video starts up. Basically, the point of the video is like, now it's time to, this other company had a customer, and now it's time for them to lose the customer. And here's how, what I'm thinking throughout the process of this move. Now, I randomly got this phone call. This was never supposed to be a customer of mine. I never would have talked to this guy otherwise. And they're a big business in Boston, presumably with a lot of contacts in Boston, the type of contacts that I want to have, which are big businesses, comedy locations, people who own comedy locations, vendors, whether that's liquor companies, food companies, comedians, all the types of situation I want to be involved in. So it's important to me when I go in there that now this customer is mine forever, for as long as I want it. So what does that look like when I go in there? I go out of my way to get in there early. I drove in there about a half an hour earlier than I needed to because I want to ensure I got the best possible parking. Which, you know, it's like one of those things. It's kind of annoying when you get up a half an hour early and you could have slept a half an hour later for sure. But on the other hand, like long term, I wound up getting a parking spot right in front of their office, which is like, doesn't seem like a huge deal unless you're familiar with the North End. You know how big of a deal that is. It's a huge deal. It's the parking there is brutal. And I got a spot that was literally right at their front door because what happened was I wound up speaking to another truck that was already there, and I talked to him. I said, you know, if you guys are leaving, can you do me a huge favor? Just give me a honk, and right when you're ready to go, if you honk, I'll turn the truck around and just zoom in that spot right when you guys take off. The only reason that happened was because I got there a half an hour early. Had I not done that, that wouldn't have been a possibility. I would have had to park farther down the street. Would have been much more time, therefore much more cost, blah, blah, blah. Now come to find out, I get up in the office and I'm carrying 2 or 3 boxes down at a time, depending on however many I can handle. They're book boxes, so they're relatively heavy. And the girl comes over at some point, the girl I was dealing with comes over at some point and says, you know, you're really making quick work of this. It's going a lot faster than I thought it was going to. That was a function of 2 things. A, the parking, first and foremost, how close I was able to get to the front door, which nobody was expecting. And B, the fact that I was hustling, trying to get as many boxes in one trip as possible. Because I had to go down 3 flights of stairs, come back up 3 flights of stairs. So obviously every time I go down there, I want to be as efficient as possible with my movement, blah, blah, blah. Hustling through. That takes a little, I don't even know how long that took. Let's just call it like 45 minutes. It might have been an hour or something. So not a lot of time because we had great parking there. And then, you know, throughout the entire move, what I'm thinking to myself as I'm trying to motivate myself, because you got to keep in mind, I'm going down 3 flights, coming up 3 flights, going down 3 flights, coming up 3 flights. And I'm just doing this over and over and over again by myself, carrying 3 or 2 book boxes at a time. And so in my mind, I'm trying to motivate myself, like telling myself, like, all right, like, here's why you're doing this. You're doing this because you want this customer. You know, you got to do what you got to do to get this customer going forward long term. Accomplish it. Everything's fine. Go over to Faneuil Hall, which is the drop-off place. I get there and like right away they're like, yeah, the elevator's broken. And I was like, all right, well, that sucks, but it is what it is. You know, I've been doing this long enough to know that I know there's a very good chance if someone tells me something, it's not going to be accurate. Unfortunately, it's just the reality of the business. So now it's time for me to just do everything in reverse. I got 2 flights of stairs I got to go up to drop everything off, and I'm doing like 3 boxes at a time, just hustling up these stairs, up and forth. And the entire time, all I'm telling myself is like, dude, steal this customer, steal this customer. This is the type of customer you want. Steal this customer. Don't give them an opportunity to call that other company back. This is now your customer, blah, blah, blah. And as I keep telling myself this over in my head to keep myself motivated, hustling up and down the stairs. We get done pretty quickly. It didn't take too long because I was able to actually get pretty close to the stairs. And so at the end of the job, she brought me in, she got me some food, she got me some water, blah, blah, blah. They thanked me up and down. She gave me a pretty big tip for the job, which is appreciated. And if I'm being honest with you, a lot of businesses, they don't tip, obviously, because it's coming out of the company money. So that was very much appreciated. And then, what else? I think that was it. That was the end of the job. But the point of this video, the entire time basically what I'm trying to explain to you is whenever you're given the opportunity to take a customer from someone else, like, you know, in a good way, like in a moral way, you know what I mean? Like I didn't like go behind someone's back and steal this person. It's just I was granted an opportunity. So whenever you get that opportunity, you take that opportunity and you take that customer for you. You know what I mean? Now this person is, as far as I'm concerned, this person is my customer. The next time they need to move, they're going to call me as far as I'm concerned. They're not going to call that other company that didn't show up for them or had to reschedule on them. That person basically handed me an opportunity, and the point of the video is you got to take that opportunity when it's granted to you. So what is that going to look like when you're out on the field, for example? You know, if someone else calls you in, say for example, I have guys that call me in, like they book a job and they'll call me in to be their like second guy. Whenever you're in that role, you want to, obviously you're now on their dime, so to speak, and you're there to help them with their customer. And I want to be real clear about this. It's their customer, but you want to do so good in that role that if that person isn't available, it's a no-brainer that they're going to then push you off as now the lead man for the next time. if the customer needs a hand, that that's something you want to do. Anytime someone calls in, a company calls in and they can't do a job, which is the whole Faneuil Hall situation I just explained, you want to make sure that you do them what they need. What else? How else does that look like? Drawing a little bit of a blank here, but you understand my point. If you have the opportunity to come in and steal someone else's thunder, you want to make sure you're using that to motivate yourself throughout the entire job. Do a good job so that you take that customer. Because you got to keep in mind, you're not just taking that customer, as I mentioned previously. You're taking that customer and all their resources. So, in that moment, there were 3 people working for me, all who were watching me work. They have their entire network of friends. They have all the businesses that they work with. They have their own business that they're moving the stuff for. So it's a giant network of people. That those 3 people weren't the only ones who were watching me. It was everyone that they know is now going to be theoretically getting a text. If they text and say, hey, we need a mover, or we need someone who can do something for us on short notice, their entire network is now going to be handed my phone number and my name, hopefully. So that's what I want you guys to keep in mind, guys. If you have the opportunity, you get handed something, a situation that you weren't expecting to come down the pipeline, make sure you take advantage of it. Do your absolute best to steal that situation from someone else. All right, guys, thank you for listening. As always, if you found any value in this, like and subscribe. If you need to get a hold of me, info@huskymoving.com. And if you want to check out the website, it's huskymoving.com. Thank you, guys.